And the last thing, the most important piece, is we're going to take the North and never give it back.
Those are Bears general manager Ryan Poles' first words at his opening press conference back in January of 2022. Fast forward 2 years later, and no, the Bears have not won the NFC North just yet. No, they have not even made the playoffs just yet in the first 2 seasons under Ryan Poles. But it seems like after this offseason, Ryan Poles' master plan is coming together. In this video, I want to talk about what Ryan Poles' master plan was when he first took over as general manager of the Bears, how we executed that plan, and what we can look forward to in the future as Chicago Bears fans. When Ryan Pace got fired by the Chicago Bears in 2022, he left his successor Ryan Poles with very little draft capital, very little cap space, an aging roster, many impending free agents, and very few good, talented young players on rookie contracts. No, it was not all terrible. He still left him guys like Cole Kmet, like Jalen Johnson, like Tevin Jenkins, like Justin Fields, who at the time, every Bears fan was all in on. So yes, there were some players that were worth keeping, that were worth building around, but the vast majority of the roster was in complete shambles. We had over 25 free agents, so a lot of spots we had to fill on the roster. No first round pick. In fact, having only 5 picks in the entire draft and not enough cap space to fill in all of these holes. And if you look at the long-term salary cap outlook of that Bears roster, there were a lot of guys on inflated big contracts, especially on the defensive side of the football. Khalil Mack was one. Robert Quinn was one. Eddie Jackson was one. And we had so much dead cap hit from previous Ryan Pace signings that did not work out. We were still paying Tariq Cohen money in 2022. We're still paying Danny Trevathan money. We're still paying Nick Foles, Eddie Goldman, Andy Dalton, Tashawn Gibson. Like the way that Ryan Pace structured these contracts, he backloaded them, pushed money in the future because he was constantly trying to win now, especially after 2018. That's when he realized his job was on the line and he had to start winning games right now, which never really happened, unfortunately. But the next general manager of the Bears, Ryan Poles, he had to pay the bill that Ryan Pace had accumulated, and this was no easy task. He knew it was going to take some time, it was going to take some patience, it was going to take a hell of a lot of effort, but he had a vision in his mind of turning the Chicago Bears into the Green Bay Packers, into the New England Patriots, into the Kansas City Chiefs, the organization that he came from. And yes, these organizations have been so successful because they have had star quarterback play, but it has not only been because of that reason. These teams consistently manage the salary cap in a very smart way. They draft very well every single year. They get rid of players at the right times, and that's something the Bears as an organization have really struggled with during my lifetime. They're constantly overpaying players. They're constantly paying players past their prime. They're constantly drafting the wrong players. They're constantly trading picks away. The Bears have never built anything long-term in my lifetime because of these reasons. But Ryan Poles, in his opening press conference, he stated exactly what his plan was going to be for changing the Chicago Bears.
We're going to build through the draft. We're going to acquire young, fast, and physical football players. We're going to be selective in free agency, and we're going to connect evaluation with valuation. We're going to have a relentless approach to fix our weakness. We're going to maintain great self-awareness of who we are. We're going to solve problems with open communication and candor. And we're going to consistently put players in position to succeed. And the last thing, the most important piece, is we're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that was Ryan Poles' plan. Like, he said it to us just outright in plain English, and he has followed that plan to a T, okay? I think he's done a really good job of staying true to that plan. Speaking about how good of a job Ryan Poles has done with the Chicago Bears, do any of you guys want to do something similar in the sports world? Are you guys tired of your current desk job and want to try something new? Because I've actually partnered with Southern New Hampshire University, the sponsor of this video, and they have an online sports management program which you can actually get a degree for, okay? They're fully accredited and nonprofit university with very affordable tuition, and if you guys want to get the connections and the education to be better prepared for a job in the sports world, this will be the opportunity to do so. Southern New Hampshire University's online sports management program lets you turn a passion for sports into a degree. You learn about the business and economics of sports, sports management principles, and how to gather and analyze data. This degree can help you prepare for a career as an athletic director, sports information director, marketing manager, and other exciting roles in the sports industry. You'll be able to tap into SNHU's network of graduates working in sports-related organizations, which is pretty cool. You also have the opportunity to take advantage of an internship or experiential learning courses within the field. And your courses are going to be taught by faculty with real-world experience, so you'll have the opportunity to connect with other people in the industry. And when you graduate, SNHU will still be there to help you as you begin your job hunt. As I mentioned, fully accredited nonprofit with very affordable tuition, and it was voted one of the country's most innovative universities by US News and World Report. Go to the website link below in my description box, guys. It's snhu.edu/DaWindyCity to get started and see if you qualify for this program. You could be eligible for financial aid or have previous college credits that could fast track your degree at SNHU, so click the link below to get started. I think it's a very cool opportunity if you guys have been wanting to get into the sports world, to get the education and the connections to be better prepared for that job. Getting back to the video though, now that we know what Ryan Poles' plan actually was, I want to talk about how we actually went about executing that plan and how we executed it perfectly, in my opinion. Maybe not perfectly entirely, like there were some slip-ups, like trading pick number 32 for Chase Claypool, giving out a couple bad contracts during his first free agency period, drafting Velus Jones. No GM is ever going to be perfect, but Ryan Poles made a handful of very solid moves that are why the Chicago Bears are in the position they're in right now and why their plan is going to be successful. The single biggest decision that enabled Ryan Poles to be successful in executing his plan was committing fully to the rebuild. He committed 100% to tearing down and building up this roster from the ground up. No other Bears general manager has committed as hard as Ryan Poles has to losing games in their first year. And yes, this is kind of a taboo subject where some fans, some media members are totally against losing games basically on purpose. Yes, I know the players did not throw games themselves. The coaches also did not throw games themselves. But Ryan Poles tore down the roster in a way in which he knew they were going to be guaranteed a top 5, a top 3 pick at least. And he got very lucky that Lovie Smith decided to go for 2. Davis Mills had that fantastic 4th down conversion. And there was definitely a lot of luck that played into it, don't get me wrong, in actually getting the number 1 overall pick, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But he put this team in a position to lose a lot of games in 2022 by basically trading away or cutting anybody with any sort of value. And this also went a long way in preserving the Bears' long-term salary cap flexibility, because he traded away contracts like the Khalil Mack contract, which is a very big contract. He got rid of players like Roquan Smith, who was about to get paid, traded him away for a 2nd round pick and a 5th round pick. He also traded Robert Quinn away for a 4th round pick when he was on an expiring deal. Like these little moves in which he was gaining more draft capital, making the team worse for the short term, opening up cap space for the future. These were the moves that enabled 2022 to go exactly the way in which Ryan Poles wanted it to go. The Bears lost a lot of games in 2022. In fact, they finished with the worst record in football, got the number 1 overall pick thanks to some last-second heroics by Davis Mills, Lovie Smith, and the Houston Texans, which, yes, looking back in hindsight, that was extremely lucky. Like, no GM could have planned that, but Ryan Poles put the Bears in position to have something like that happen by committing fully to the rebuild, by losing a lot of games. It's the easiest and fastest way to become good in the NFL. Obviously, you have to hit on your draft picks, but if you lose a lot of games for just 1 year, it can really have a lot of long-term benefits for your franchise, which Ryan Poles fully realized. And yes, unfortunately, we screwed over Justin Fields in the process, who was a very talented quarterback coming out of college, but with the roster that Ryan Pace had left Ryan Poles, in order for Ryan Poles to execute his long-term vision of turning the Chicago Bears into the Chiefs, the Packers, the Patriots, he had to do a full reset. Again, not fair at all to Justin Fields. We definitely did him dirty in that 2022 season, but these things unfortunately happen in the NFL, and I give a lot more blame to Ryan Pace for that lack of a good situation in 2022 than I do for Ryan Poles, because I understood the thought process that Ryan Poles had entering that 2022 season. And I do want to add that even though I've criticized Matt Eberflus in the past, I think that Ryan Poles hiring a culture guy like Matt Eberflus that could keep the team together through some tough losing times was pretty smart on Ryan Poles' end. Ryan Poles knew this team was going to be losing a lot of games, but he still had to instill some level of culture on this team and build something, and Matt Eberflus has built something that a lot of the players are big fans of. Okay, if you ask the players, they were fighting hard for Matt Eberflus at the end of last season. Guys like Montez Sweat were talking about how smart of a coach he is and how much, you know, they really enjoy playing for him. So even though he does have question marks as a decision maker, you know, as a play caller sometimes, and I'm still not totally convinced he's the coach of the future, he has to prove that to me this year. Hiring a culture guy was an underrated move throughout some losing times. Okay, we needed a glue guy that could keep the team together, and Eberflus was that. But thankfully, the Bears were rewarded for all their losing with the #1 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. And this is really the crown jewel behind Ryan Poles' execution of his vision. Okay, he turned this pick, just one selection, into one of the biggest hauls, if not the biggest haul in NFL history. The Bears have turned that pick so far into wide receiver DJ Moore, offensive tackle Darnell Wright, cornerback Tyreek Stevenson, quarterback Caleb Williams, punter Tory Taylor, and a second-round pick next year. It's not even done giving to us yet. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And yes, we also had to trade back from pick number 9 to get that 4th-round pick to get Tory Taylor, but this might go down as the best trade in NFL history. If Caleb Williams can actually live up to his potential, this could very well be the best trade in NFL history. And yes, I know a lot of people may say that it was lucky of the Bears to get this because we had a lot of luck go our way to get the #1 overall pick, which is totally fair to say, but Ryan Poles was the one that negotiated so well, that basically took advantage of a general manager on a team with a desperate owner in David Tepper. Okay, the Panthers were a team that was very desperate for a quarterback that offseason. Combine a desperate owner with a general manager that might be on a short leash, and that's the perfect recipe for fleecing another franchise, which is exactly what Ryan Poles did. And the best part about this trade was that he made the Panthers a lot worse by also making them include their #1 receiver in DJ Moore. Bryce Young's life would have been so much easier last year if he did have a DJ Moore, but by basically forcing them to include DJ Moore as a sweetener in this deal to get the deal done before free agency began that year, he put Bryce Young in a terrible position to succeed. And yes, again, some luck was involved in everything going wrong for the Panthers last year, but that was the perfect roster and the perfect team to conduct that trade with. So I still give a lot of credit to Ryan Poles for making one of the most successful trades in Chicago Bears history. So tanking fully, getting the #1 overall pick and trading it for that haul obviously jump-started the Bears rebuild, but it's not only been that, okay? It's been a lot of smart draft picks and smart signings even by Ryan Poles that have enabled the Bears to be in such a good position with the cap and have so much young talent on rookie contracts. I'm not going to go through every single draft pick and every single signing because that could be its own separate video, but I do want to highlight some of the key draft picks and signings that Ryan Poles has made that have enabled the Bears to become a much better roster. First of all, in 2022, he drafted Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker in the 2nd round. Both of them have flashed potential throughout their Bears career so far, have forced some turnovers, and they added to a Bears secondary that at the time was one of the worst in football asides from Jalen Johnson. So those were 2 picks that had to happen to give the Bears some building blocks in the secondary. He also drafted Braxton Jones in the 5th round, which ended up being an absolute steal. Say what you want about Braxton Jones, maybe he's not elite, top of the league, but to get a starting level tackle that is pretty good at times in the 5th round was a hell of a find by Ryan Poles. You go to the following year's draft in 2023, and the first 3 picks he made, all these guys have showed a lot of potential in their rookie year. Darnell Wright was one of the better rookie offensive tackles last year, showed a lot of promise down the stretch. Javon Dexter had a fantastic second half of the season rushing the passer. Tyreek Stevenson was one of the better rookie cornerbacks in football, forced a lot of turnovers too, was really good in that Packers game, the final Packers game. He was the only one that prevented the Packers from scoring like 30 plus because he made a handful of plays himself to keep the Bears in that game. So those 3 picks alone could go down as foundational pieces of the Bears' future. If you look at the 2024 draft, obviously none of these guys have played a single snap yet, so you can't crown them just yet. But to come out of that draft with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, those could be generational players for the Chicago Bears, and to also add a very solid punter, a very good edge rusher prospect that could have gone a lot higher, to also get Karan Amagaji, add more depth on the offensive line. Like, that was a hell of a draft by Ryan Poles on paper. Looking at some of the best players acquired via trade then, obviously DJ Moore comes to mind. He's been a beast for the Bears already. Montez Sweat was a very good acquisition last year, in which we gave up a second-round pick, but we got the best pass rusher on the team and a guy that went crazy for the Bears down that stretch. In the second half of that season, he traded away a fourth-round pick for Keenan Allen this offseason, and Keenan Allen is one of the better receivers in football still, so that was an absolute steal to help build the best receiving core in Bears history, probably the best receiving core in the NFL for a young quarterback for the low cost of a fourth-round pick. And going to some signings, he's not been as successful in free agency, I would say, as he has been in the NFL draft, but there still have been a lot of good signings. He retained homegrown talent in Jalen Johnson and Cole Kmet, got them at pretty reasonable deals too, according to what the market rate was at the time. He got them for very fair prices. Neither of their deals broke the bank. If you look at some other small signings, like Andrew Billings has been an underrated but very good signing for very cheap money, only getting paid a couple million, but he's one of the Bears' best run defenders on the team. TJ Edwards was an absolute steal. He was one of the best linebackers in football last year, racked up a lot of tackles, a lot of big plays on that Bears defense. And if you look at this year's signings, there's been some really good ones. I like the Gerald Everett move. I like the Kevin Byard signing, and a couple other, guys that could turn out to be good signings. Eventually, we have to see them actually play on the football field. But you can see that Ryan Poles has had a lot of success turning the assets he's accumulated into actual good football players. Okay, he's not just a guy that can tear down a roster and get a lot of draft picks. He's actually turned those draft picks into really good players on cheap rookie contracts. He's made some fantastic trade acquisitions, like a DJ Moore, like a Montez Sweat, like a Keenan Allen. We won't talk about the Chase Claypool pick right now. That was a bad one, obviously, but that was his only terrible trade, obviously, right? And he's got rid of assets at the right times. Like, I know he traded away Roquan Smith, and Roquan is still a good player, but he turned that money into Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, and that draft pick into Gervon Dexter. Still a solid trade for the Bears. To turn Khalil Mack into a second-round pick and all that extra cap space also ended up benefiting the Bears probably in the long run, because we had to tank in 2022, and having Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn on the roster would not have allowed us to tank and reset in the way that Ryan Poles wanted to. So overall, I think Ryan Poles' master plan is really starting to come together. As soon as this year, the Bears could be a damn good football team with a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract with so many assets in the future. We got all of our draft picks next year. We got an extra second-round pick, in fact, from the Carolina Panthers, who could be a pretty bad team again. That could be a pretty high pick. We have over $65 million in cap space for next season. So even after spending a good amount of money, we still have a lot of money to spend long-term because of how Ryan Poles has structured these contracts. So I know it's been very hard to trust the Chicago Bears as an organization, to trust Chicago Bears general managers, but right now, I got a lot of faith in Ryan Poles, and I'm very happy with how he's executed the Bears rebuild. And now it's time to start winning a lot of football games, I hope. Leave your comments down below, guys. As always, bear down.